Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. We start with the push to end hazing in Ohio. The death of Bowling Green State University student Stone Foltz sparked legal change in Ohio, and now his parents are taking legal action against the university. They sat down with 10 TV's Clay Gordon.
It's been 16 months since the loss of their son, Stone Foltz. 8 indictments, 6 guilty pleas, and 2 court trials, resulting in guilty verdicts for hazing and alcohol counts, but acquittals for involuntary manslaughter and reckless homicide counts.
We're happy with it.
I sat down with Sherry and Corey Foltz since those verdicts were handed down.
Did you wish the courts came back with more?
Certainly, I think you always have that sidebar where you hope for more, especially with a death. You know, there's others that are accountable, and, you know, we trusted the court system, and, you know, we left it in their hands.
You got to imagine the accountability piece. Those individuals need to live the rest of their lives knowing they played a role in Stone's death.
The next step now is you guys are looking towards the school for accountability.
We really want to hold those with power at the universities accountable to protect these students.
The family filed a wrongful death lawsuit and civil suit this morning, outlining a history of hazing incidents within Greek life at Bowling Green State University.
What we are asking for is more proactive action on the front end. Reality is that Bowling Green knew they had a hazing problem on their campus. They knew about this fraternity in particular. They had problems with this fraternity, and they did nothing about it.
So what are you seeking in this lawsuit? We're
seeking both, obviously in civil litigation, you need to be asking for compensation, but we are also asking for real change here.
Was this really the last option to take, was filing suit? Was there any kind of resolve in between this?
We had mediation. Unfortunately, the past 14 months we've tried to work with the university, and unfortunately we had to come to this situation.
And file the complaint.
Again, that was 10 TV's Clay Gordon reporting. Bowling Green did come out with a statement on this wrongful death filing, calling the lawsuit in part meritless and saying that it undermines the university's efforts to stop hazing. You can read their full statement at 10tv.com. This week, Franklin County Commissioner John O'Grady made an appearance in the nation's capital. He talked to folks at the White House as he traveled there to talk about money our state received from the American Rescue Plan. The funding was handed out in 2021. It's supposed to be used to help states recover from the impact left by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now the commissioner is explaining how the $257 million is being used in our state.
Helping folks that are struggling with rent, they're paying their rent and their mortgages. We've been helping folks that are businesses that are struggling with workforce and workforce development.
And O'Grady says that money will also go toward vaccinating more Ohioans. The youngest children in our state are starting to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It happened less than a week after the FDA approved the shots for babies through preschoolers. 10 TV's Lindsay Mills shares why some parents will need to rely on clinics to get the vaccine.
Smaller doses.
Where's your Band-Aid? Show them your Band-Aid.
Tiny arms.
We try to prepare a little bit. We talked about it. What we're going to go in, we're just going to get a little poke.
A poke providing peace of mind for parents like SHYLA Thurston.
Mommy and Daddy has already had theirs, and we're just going to go in and get protected so that we can go out and do things again.
Despite her best efforts to mask up and avoid indoor places, her 2.5-year-old son Cruz got COVID twice.
He ended up in the ER the first time with it. The second time he ended up at the doctor's office with group.
Cruz was the first child under the age of 5 to get a COVID-19 vaccine at a Columbus Public Health clinic Wednesday morning. Some parents will be seeking out clinics like this one because in Ohio, only children 3 and above can get vaccinated at a pharmacy.
And this is because of provisions allowed to us by the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act.
For Mom Emma McCullough, there was no hesitation.
No.
She says providing this protection for her 2-year-old daughter Marin is what they've been waiting for, to return to a sense of normalcy.
We would have loved to go to Pride and everything, but just because she hasn't been vaccinated yet, we've been really hesitant about that.
And our thanks to 10 TV's Lindsay Mills. She also asked Ohio pharmacists about how the state is getting more kids vaccinated, how they're getting ready to do that.
So the Ohio Pharmacists Association meets with the Ohio Department of Health and Ohio's Medicaid managed care plans every other week to strategize ways to enable our pharmacists to get the vaccine. And if they have any issues with reaching their populations, we try and facilitate that. So we have been communicating closely with our pharmacist members to ensure that they have all the resources they need, whether it's informational packets for their patients or even just simply ordering information so that they can get the specific vials for these pediatric formulations.
For now, Columbus Public Health is only offering the Pfizer vaccine for that particular age group. Moderna vaccine will be available through Franklin County Public Health. This week, Ohio's largest business organizations gathered at the State House to show support for Supreme Court justices. The list includes Sharon Kennedy for Chief Justice. Justices Pat DeWine and Pat Fisher are also up for re-election. The 5 organizations say the business community relies on consistency at the Supreme Court because it helps plan for future projects.
We care about the court because there's a lot of issues that come before the court that are directly economic issues. They directly set the course of how both large and small businesses are able to operate in this state. It can be from liability issues. Small business owners pay a greater percentage of burden for all kinds of liability insurance. Again, a court that's making it up, doing whatever it wants to do in the area of liability, creates a huge cost to particularly small businesses. Another very important issue that courts deal with is private property rights. Most small business owners own their private property. Again, a court out of control, a court not following the letter of the law can be very detrimental in private property rights.
A major company headed to Columbus is putting its groundbreaking on hold. We're talking about Intel. The new Albany plant is being stalled indefinitely. Intel tells us the plant is largely dependent on federal funding, and delays in Washington, D.C. mean there will be delays here in Ohio. The company still does intend, it says, to build the plants. Meantime, this week, New Albany decided Intel will get a massive tax break for the next 30 years. Under a vote passed earlier this week, the tech giant will only owe the city taxes if it doesn't make a certain amount of revenue. The agreement says that Intel will still have to make payments to the county treasurer each year. Intel is slated to build that mega semiconductor plant in western Lincoln County, with production set to begin in 2025. More affordable housing options are coming to Ohioans. At the same time, we're verifying whether typical rent in the U.S. is now more than what people make on minimum wage. Thank you for joining us here on Face the State. You know, this week there was a landmark Supreme Court case involving Marietta's Memorial Hospital and a dialysis clinic. In a 7-2 ruling, justices ruled the hospital's insurance policies do not discriminate against patients with end-stage renal disease, which causes kidney failure. DaVita, a kidney care center, claimed that hospitals' insurance singled out patients by reimbursing at low rates in hopes that they would switch their medical plans to Medicare. 2 health plan administrators are responsible for pushing the case to the Supreme Court. 10 TV spoke with an attorney who represents the hospital.
They were up against virtually the entire the Washington establishment in doing that. It was a big challenge that they took on, but they had the guts and the courage to stand up against it.
The attorney also told us the ruling will likely lead to more resources for the nearly 157 million people who use group insurance health plans. Finance is the focus of two pieces of legislation written by U.S. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, who represents the 3rd District. The House of Representatives passed H.R. 2543, which is known as the Financial Services, Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Economic Justice Act. It's a package of 13 bills focused on promoting racial and economic justice throughout the financial services sector. Congresswoman Beatty authored the Diversity and Inclusion Data Accountability and Transparency Act and the Expanding Opportunity for Minority Depository Institutions, or MDIs Act. The Ensuring Diverse Leadership Act was adopted as an amendment to the bill before its passage. Okay, here's what happens if it's signed into law. The Diversity and Inclusion Data Accountability and Transparency Act would require diversity and inclusion data disclosure from federally regulated financial firms. The Expanding Opportunity for MDIs Act provides minority depository institutions, MDIs, and other small financial institutions with mentorship opportunities from larger institutions. And the Ensuring Diverse Leadership Act would require the Federal Reserve to consider ethnically and gender diverse candidates when filling a vacancy for any of the 12 Federal Reserve Bank presidents. Congresswoman Beatty chairs the Financial Services Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion and is also the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Some Ohioans are about to get new options for affordable housing. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development is helping the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority preserve 142 rental homes. $16 million project here will also go toward building 8 more affordable homes, plus a new daycare center. The homes and the daycare center are at Park Oak Station Apartments, and that's near Southwest Columbus. One of the many expenses affected by growing inflation is housing. Casey Decker with our Verify national team looked into a viral claim that says your basic minimum wage income is no longer enough to even make rent.
Home prices and rents continue to rise, but the federal minimum wage hasn't changed since 2009. One viral tweet claimed, quote, the average rent in the U.S. hit a new record high of $1,827 last month. On the federal minimum wage of $7.25, people take home $1,256 a month. Let's verify. Has typical rent in America exceeded the income earned on federal minimum wage? Our sources, the Department of Labor, and 3 real estate sites that produce research on rent prices. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour, so let's calculate monthly income. On a 40-hour work week, if you worked 52 weeks a year, that comes out to $1,256 per month, just like the tweet claimed. Now, of course, some states have minimum wages higher than that, but we'll come back to that. The tweet says the average rent in America is $1,827 per month. That number comes from Realtor.com's April estimate of median rent. It's based off units advertised on the site in the top 50 metro areas and only includes studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom apartments. Redfin does a similar estimate based on listed units of all sizes. Its number for April was $1,962 per month. And Zillow's estimate actually tries to account for all rents, not just new listings. Their national typical rent number, $1,927 per month. All of those rent estimates are significantly higher than the $1,256 per month you can make on federal minimum wage. That means we can verify that the tweet is truthful when it claims typical rent has exceeded the income earned on the federal minimum wage. So what wage would you have to make to afford typical rent in the U.S.? Using Zillow's 1927 estimate, you need to make $11.22 per hour. And that's just to make rent. It doesn't account for taxes or other living costs. 16 states plus D.C. have minimum wages that high, but the cost of rent in those states may be higher than the national estimates. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.
Right now, several agencies are working to support families who were left in the dark for days earlier this month during an intentional AEP Ohio outage. Impact Community Action is giving out Kroger gift cards to replace food that went bad. That will happen 2 days this coming week. Mid-Ohio Food Collective plans to buy more food for its pantry, which already serves the community. And then there's LifeCare Alliance giving out free meals.
So if you need help, we'll give you 10 meals per person. Plus, if you want to come and get them, you can come to our Carrie's Cafe at 670 Harmon Avenue and during the lunchtime hour, and they'll feed you another meal while you're there.
You can find more information on how to connect with each of those agencies at the 10 TV website and on the 10 TV app. The White House is pushing for a gas tax holiday. We're going to crunch the numbers on how much that could save you and if there's a chance any Ohioans would suspend the state gas tax. Federal lawmakers spent hours this week with the chair of the Federal Reserve talking about inflation. Ohio's U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown acknowledged several factors are at play when it comes to rising prices, but did lay out some of the blame on corporations.
Most of these executives, they're not bad people. They're just doing their jobs, they tell us. It's the Wall Street system. These executives have to post profit increases for their shareholders quarter after quarter after quarter. The consequences for everything else be damned. And everyone else be damned. It's why for decades Wall Street's rewarded the companies that squeeze their workers the hardest, companies that cut wages and retirement benefits, then cut corners on worker safety and consumer protection just to make their stock prices go up. Our economy doesn't have to be a zero-sum game where Wall Street wins, everyone else loses. We can create an economy that reflects our values and works for everyone.
During that hearing, the Fed chairman admitted that recession is a possibility. He says federal rate increases won't lower gas prices or grocery prices, but they do hope the rate hikes will slow inflation to 2%. In May, inflation was 8.6%. Meantime, President Biden is pushing lawmakers to suspend the federal gas tax for 3 months to help people with the rising cost of everything. A gas tax holiday sounds like savings, but financial experts say not so much. Most economists and analysts say the gas tax holiday wouldn't save you much money. Let's put 18 cents a gallon into perspective. An SUV with a 15-gallon tank costs $74 to fill up. Eliminating the federal gas tax would bring that cost down by $2.70.
It's not clear how much of that reduction will actually be passed along to the consumers. We would like to see that you remove the 18 cents a gallon tax, prices drop by 18 cents a gallon. But there's a number of players along the way, a number of companies, and it's not clear how much they might capture some of the, they might reduce the prices by 10 cents and capture the 8 cents for themselves. So, I mean, it could help a little bit. I mean, gas prices are quite high. I mean, if you have a $20 gallon tank, every time you fill up, you're paying $100, and that's not inconsequential. I think overall the effect on consumers like you and me is likely to be pretty minor.
The president's plan faces an uphill battle in Congress. Here's what U.S. Senator Rob Portman had to say about the president's plan on Fox News earlier this week.
Some money going to come out of the Highway Trust Fund, so in other words, we're going to have fewer roads and bridges. We're the inflation is hitting there too, so we're having a tough time keeping up. And is it going to be for how long? And so if it's 3.6% of the cost of gas, that would help. But what would help a whole lot more is if we had more production of gas and oil. Oil obviously is the biggest part of gasoline, not next refining, and then next it would be state taxes and the next federal taxes.
Any significant price drop at the pump would depend on states joining in and gas suppliers passing on the savings. Governor Mike DeWine has told 10 TV several times that he doesn't think Ohio should suspend the state gas tax. He's said that would cause a negative impact on highway and infrastructure projects without giving Ohioans much of a break at the pump. However, his challenger in the November election, Democrat Nan Whaley, thinks Ohio should suspend the state gas tax for 6 months. She says she would use money from the rainy day fund to make up for money lost for road improvements like the Brent Spence Bridge project down there in Cincinnati. We do have some promising news for drivers in Ohio. The BMV is launching new online services. Governor Mike DeWine says the new additions will make your BMV experience easier. Tomorrow will mark the first rollout. The governor says Ohioans will be able to renew their licenses or state IDs online.
The options we're announcing today are part of our ongoing commitment to improve the BMV's customer service.
On July 11th, drivers in Ohio will also be able to transfer car titles and take traffic laws tests all online. Well, the city of Gahanna is disagreeing with state law about fireworks. City council decided this week that the current fireworks ban is going to remain in place. Gahanna joins the growing list of cities going against the new state law, which makes it legal to use commercial-grade fireworks in your backyard during certain holidays. Well, for years you've said it, your parents have said it, and even your grandparents. Now it's not just a fan saying, it's going to be the saying. The Ohio State University trademarked the word, and it's certainly being talked about across the nation. 10 TV's Bryant Somerville explains what all the fuss is about.
What is the big deal? I mean, it's a word. It is a simple word, one that is all over the campus. I mean, it's everywhere. But now OSU doesn't have to share the, apparently.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's tradition. And I figured if anyone could talk to me about tradition, it would be Julie Sapp, who works
College Traditions
at College Traditions, which specializes in having all the things.
We do.
Selling every piece of OSU merch you could think of.
Yep, nope, we've got them.
Including the one thing that OSU fans love to say the most, the one thing that OSU haters hate hearing the most, putting the word "the" in front of everything. The Buckeyes, the Ohio State.
Ohio State University.
My apologies. And those three letters have officially been granted to OSU. Tuesday, it was announced that after almost 3 years since it was filed, OSU has now become the trademark owner of the.
I don't think it'll really change much. I mean, everybody knows us as the Ohio State University, but I think having it official, you know, it's a big deal.
A university spokesperson says the trademark will be on branded products associated with and sold through athletics and collegiate channels, and that the war cry is part of Ohio State's trademark and licensing program that generates an average of more than $12.5 million annually in revenue, which funds student scholarships and university programs.
This is it. That's it.
Currently, at College Traditions, there are only a handful of items for sale bearing the branding.
All right, you are all set.
Sapp hopes now
I hope so. I definitely hope so.
the new trademark will lead to new business.
So what are your thoughts about the man, a few words.
To people outside of Ohio State, they may look at this and say, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can see their point?
No, I can't.
On the campus of The Ohio State University.
Any thoughts about the color of my shirt?
Bryant Somerville.
All right.
10 TV News.
It's the final installment in a rivalry between colleagues of Congress. Senator Sherrod Brown shared this tweet from his annual softball game against Senator Rob Portman. Brown says his blue collars held on in the end against Portman's swing state sluggers. Portman has announced that he plans to step away from Congress. He's going to retire at the end of his term. Before we go this morning, we want to give 9-year-old Noah Geis a big congratulations. He won the Mini Master Model Builder title of Columbus. The prompt was to build something that represents Ohio. He went all out. He built the Wright brothers plane flying over the Ohio River. It also includes the state animal and flower. And from now until Monday, he needs your vote to win the nationwide competition. Do that today after we leave you. You can do it online. Just go to 10tv.com/featured links to find that voting link. Congratulations to Noah and best of luck. Thank you for joining us here today on Face the State. Have a great week.